Welcome to the SCV Law and Life podcast. I'm Rashtian. Each week I sit down with people in the legal world and beyond to talk about the strategies that are actually working for them in law, in life, and everything in between. Real conversations, real lessons, and ideas you can actually use. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the SCV Law and Life podcast. I'm your host, Rashtian. Today with us, we have John Mashni, who is an attorney, an entrepreneur, an author, and founder of Rendios Law. He works with business owners, entrepreneurs, startups, and creators on the business, intellectual property, and tax decisions that shape everything that comes next. That would be how they're structured, what to protect, and how they plan for growth or a future transition. John is known for simplifying complex issues in a way that feels calm and human without ego or jargon. He also hosts The Intense Life, a podcast about joy, growth, and doing meaningful work with intention. Finally, John writes children's books with his family at threegirlsanddad.com. John lives in Michigan with his wife, 4 kids, and 2 dogs. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, thanks so much, Mason. Great to be here with you.
So I know I gave a little background, but please take a few minutes and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, I'm a practicing attorney. Been practicing, 13 years now, or 14, maybe it's 14. Yeah, long time. Worked for about 10 years before I went to law school. Went to film school and actually had a bunch of different positions before law school. Ran a marketing and media department. Then went to law school. Loved business owners and entrepreneurs, so decided to kind of focus in that. And I had a great background in intellectual property before law school. And so really kind of gravitated towards entrepreneurs and then intellectual property. And that's a big focus of what I do. And then the tax side just came in with learning what do most business owners hate? It's taxes. And so most of them hate paying taxes and always everybody says, how can I pay less in tax? So I started really working in tax planning. And that's where that tax background came from. Now today, generally I serve as outside general counsel to business owners, entrepreneurs, creative types, and then bigger nonprofits will serve in a similar role, just direct legal traffic. A big part of what I do is focused on how can we get people to think and act like a media company, even if they're not. I have a lot of experience with big traditional media companies, very, very large multi-billion-dollar organizations. So how can we take what they do in secret and really teach it to people, the businesses that we work with? And so like professionally, that's what I do. I love writing though. I'm kind of a writer, storyteller at heart. So a number of years ago, I started putting together the bedtime stories I told my kids into children's books. So that's been super fun. And I produce movies as well with a group since I can't give up that passion. And then I let it all kind of inform the legal work that I do working with people. That's a long story short. There's a lot there, but it's really allows me to have some fun, really cool and diverse experiences.
All right. Well, let's start with this. So Rendios Law, that's your firm?
Yeah.
When was that founded?
Just over a year ago. So I worked in big law, kind of grew up in big law in the transactional kind of world. And I went for about 10 years, I was at a big firm. I'd say 100 attorneys or so. Went to a bigger firm, about 250, let's say 4 years ago or so. Then started a firm with a partner. And then about a year ago, I kind of went off on my own. And now it's been great. Rendios has really grown, have a lot of success. A few other attorneys work with me, a few paralegals, and we're growing. So it's been really exciting just to build something the way I want to do it, that fits with my core values and really serves the people that I want to serve, there's something with, I love working with creatives, but I also love working with entrepreneurs. And a lot of times they're overlapping characteristics. And so it's been fun. It's been very fun.
Is it transactional work or is it litigation or combination?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm transactional. Really. I'm involved with litigation. Normally though, we'll bring in somebody that will focus on the litigation piece, and I'm the transactional or the business kind of side of things, but I am involved with disputes, but it usually comes from the business client being involved with it. And then we transition to that litigation side.
Okay. So you guys handle business matters, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
General business, certainly business transactions like mergers, acquisitions, M&A, buying and selling businesses, and then all the different stuff that comes up. A lot of licensing, so the intellectual property. Almost all of our clients have some type of intellectual property that we're helping to protect at the same time as serving as like that business counsel.
Okay. And how do you help them with the tax part of it? I know
Yeah,
there's
a
specific name.
lot of different ways. So one part is just tax planning, right? When we're setting up new entities, I live in startup world, so a lot of my clients are traditional startups where hey, we help them form an entity, then we're going to do some fundraising, whether it's through like convertible notes or safes or something else. And then a lot of the things that we'll do starting in startup world have tax implications, and so there's a lot of tax issues that come up on the planning side and even tax planning. I help people. I'm like, hey, I have this huge tax bill. How can we do some planning proactively so I'm not paying as much in taxes? And that's a growing area that I've really started to get involved with, and it's been great. We really helped a lot of people.
So I know you guys are in Michigan, but can you do that in other states like in California?
Yeah, yeah. On the tax planning side, anything that's federal, we can take on clients from outside of Michigan. If it's Michigan specific, I'd let people know. But and a lot of the tax and intellectual
Mhm.
property work, is not Michigan specific. It's federal tax or federal legal issues, and so we can help people.
Yeah, no, tax are a big thing for everybody. It just never seems to go away. Do you guys also form like LLCs and
Yeah.
personal corporations?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So that's a big part of what we do. Why people sometimes originally reach out to us. That's just the basics, and then we'll handle their kind of annual compliance and the regulatory, filings and things like that. If they like, we just docket it, take care of it for them, and that includes even the intellectual property side too. There's stuff, the filing of the applications, but then also monitoring
Mhm.
and regulatory filings like renewals and things like that, and then the upkeep, right? So part of it is like, hey, we file, but what I noticed was I try to be the attorney that I would have loved to have, 20 years ago. So it's like that's everything I design and think about is, hey, what would I want? Like if I were my own attorney, what would I want my attorney? What would I want them to do? How would I want them to treat me? And even one of the biggest things I tell people is every company is a media and entertainment company, whether you think you are or not. Even like you having a podcast, Masons, like this is a perfect example, right? Like you can act like a big media company by creating content, but then protecting it and then turning it into something that's monetizable, right? Turning it into an asset. Though I think that exact same way for myself. That's why I have a podcast and I have my children's books and brands and filing my own trademarks and building something that is not just an asset, but it's an asset I can protect and then turn it into something that makes money or something that ultimately is monetizable. So that's just how I think. And that's how I'd love to help people and design what I offer. So it's like if someone like me comes in to our business and says, hey, we need help legally, then we walk them through this path. Hey, how do we do exactly the stuff that I want to do as an entrepreneur?
So can you tell the audience a difference between an LLC and a personal corporation and how that could help them?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a great question. The biggest thing is have an entity first. Most people, they think, hey, I'm going to be in business, start a company, I'm going to do something entrepreneurial. They sometimes they can just operate out of their own name, right? Their business is their name, and there's a tax consequence. It's on their Schedule C, on their 1040 or their personal tax return. I don't know how much tax you want to get into. I'm happy to go deep if people want it, but essentially, people then come to a point where they understand, hey, I need an entity. I should have an entity. Someone tells it to them. Sometimes it's an accountant. Sometimes they hear it online. Somebody says, hey, get an entity. And the two big ones that people hear about are usually the two you mentioned, right? LLC or corporation. There's the biggest reason why I say to do one of them is you want liability protection, right? You want the liabilities of the company to stay in the company, and you don't want them to be able to attach to your personal assets, right? You want to protect those personal assets that you have, and also keep whatever liabilities in the company. You don't want to be personally liable for it unless you affirmatively choose to be liable, like if you're getting a loan from a bank, right, where they make you sign a guarantee or something like that. So number one, have an entity. Number two, how do you pick an entity? A lot of times this is the first conversation I have with somebody. Which entity should we choose? And many people say just always do one or always do the other. I'm not that way. It's very customized to the specific situation. Many times an LLC makes a lot of sense, right? It's simple. You don't have as many of the formalities that you're required to have for a corporation. So in most cases, I tell people you should still do those things. You should still have like an annual meeting. You should still do meeting minutes. You should still capture some of those decisions. But an LLC usually has less formalities that are required by law. Again, that depends on the state itself. And then also an LLC is taxed differently by default. So for instance, if you have one owner, typically an LLC is taxed as a disregarded entity, meaning you're treated exactly the same for tax purposes as if you operated the business out of your own name. It's disregarded entity. It goes on a Schedule C, and you just track profit and loss, right? Just like you would very simply if you were a sole proprietor owning the business in your own name. A corporation, though, by default is taxed as a corporation, and you can elect to be taxed differently. But if you're taxed as a corporation, it's much different. There's 2 layers of tax. So any money that comes in, you're taxed at the corporate level, and also when you pull it out, it's taxed as income or a dividend. So there is a tax difference if you just go by the defaults. Now, those are the 2 big characteristics. One would be, are there other owners? How do you want to be taxed? Because there are pros and cons to being taxed different ways. Even though in a corporation you have double taxation, sometimes there are massive advantages to being taxed as a corporation. One of which is something called qualified small business stock, where if you have a qualified trader business and you hold that stock for a period of time, 3 to 4 to 5 years, then you can actually eliminate capital gains on those taxes. So up to a certain dollar amount just was raised in the last tax bill from $10 million to $15 million. So if you're going to sell your company, oftentimes I think people should at least have a discussion with someone like me. It doesn't have to be me, but someone like me. Say, hey, does it make sense to be a corporation? Because you can save taxes on up to $15 million. Again, just having a conversation at the beginning helps you down the line. But you have to understand that it's going to be harder to pull money out. So like I said, there's pros and cons. LLC is not always the right one, and a corporation is not always the right one.
Yeah, I have a friend who's actually going to be selling his practice, and he's worried about capital gains. So that's exactly what it is.
And that is a huge issue. If you formed as an LLC originally, it's very difficult to unwind. I would say it's very difficult to just change that. You can't go retroactively change it. You have to have a 5-year holding period, or they just change it now as a 3, 4, or 5, and you don't get to defer, or you don't get to eliminate as much of the tax. But again, that's why you would want to have that discussion at the beginning of the process. It doesn't mean we can't help someone later. It just means it's easier if you're planning ahead of time.
Okay, so as far as the LLC, you said if you're a solo person. So I have an LLC that I was solo, but then I added my wife as a vice president.
Yeah. Yep.
How's that gonna change?
Well, it depends. You could add her as an officer, but not add her as an owner or member. So it really depends what you did specifically, right? You could go from a single member LLC to a multi-member, or you can just have a single member LLC where your wife has some other role, like an officer or a manager, right? Or something like that. And many times, even in tax planning, it's helpful to have a spouse working in the business for a lot of reasons. Sometimes you want them to be a member for specific reasons, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want it to be disregarded so you don't have to file an extra tax return, right?
Okay.
But you want them involved in the business because let's say you want to be able to pay certain expenses for them on behalf of the business because they're doing work in the business, right? Or you want to be able to put them on like a board of advisors because you do want them to have a role. So, and even sometimes there's planning with kids here too, where you want to hire your kids and do things like that.
Oh boy.
I know.
A lot of stuff goes in.
You opened up a can of worms, right?
I did, yeah. The reason I did it is because we needed to change is for a property that we own, and I wanted to change it to the name of the LLC. So I had to put her on there because she's also on the property. That's the reason why I did it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of things that tie together, right? And like I don't want to say one thing or the other without knowing all the facts, but sometimes you do want to, if you have an LLC that owns real property, you want to be thoughtful about, hey, property taxes and uncapping and all that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure sometimes there's non-tax reasons that drive the legal structure more than the tax reasons. And that's what I tell people all the time, Mason, is don't let the tax considerations be the only consideration. You want, like, sure, everyone wants to pay less tax, but you don't want to be in a position where you jeopardize some other structure or some other consideration, like, could be real estate uncapping, or could be cash flow. Hey, maybe you're not paying any taxes, but you don't have any cash coming in to pay your bills or to pay expenses. So to me, the tax issue isn't the only issue. It's, you got to look at things in totality and say, hey, I want to achieve my goals. And part of my goal is to save some money in taxes, so I have this cash to do other things. A lot of times it's, hey, I got to reinvest into the business more. I would take that money saved in tax, and I would just reinvest. I would hire someone, I would buy some equipment, I would do this new investment, or I would start a new business, right? Because I have this cash now where I can do something else. So to me, it's don't let the and I'm probably going to say the phrase wrong, the tax tail wag the dog, right? You want to, hey, what's my goal? What am I trying to achieve? And then look at all the pieces and how they work together.
And this is why you should talk to someone like John, who knows what he's talking about. So tell us, tell everybody, how can people reach you?
The best way, simplest way is just johnmashni.com, JOHNMASHNI.com. You can also go to rendios.com. That's my website. It's RENDIOS. And those, either way, you can find a way to reach out to me. But you can learn more about me too, and the books and the writing and everything else on johnmashni.com. And then Rendios is the specific legal side of stuff that we do.
Okay. So now let's talk about the books. When did you get started?
So I've been writing. I've written a couple screenplays in my 20s, which was over 20 years ago now. And I'd always had this love for storytelling and writing. And in 2015, I started writing nonfiction, writing online, and a bunch of articles. And actually, you can find them all on johnmashni.com. I've written over 100 articles in a short period of time. And I love writing. And what I noticed was I had a very busy law practice. And so it was hard to write something that was longer. So in 2019, I started writing children's books. I really had no desire to write children's books. I kind of thought they were stupid, to be very honest with you, because I had kids. But you read these books and it's like, okay, the blurb on the back was longer than the entire book. If you know what if you've ever, have you done this? Read books to kids? Do you have kids, Mason, or what's your?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
They're 23 and 20, but yeah, we used to read to them all the time.
You remember? Okay.
Oh, I remember the little cat.
And right, yeah, it's just like, and the books would drive me crazy. So I would get tired of the books, and so I would just say, well, let me make up my own stories to tell my kids, because I always loved bedtime. I'd worked a lot of hours. And so it was like the only time that I got that was focused with my kids. And so I would just make up silly stories, I would make fun of fairy tales, actually, because I thought it was fun to do that with them. And I never thought anyone in the whole world would ever know about my silly stories I told my kids, until one day my kids would love them. And they told a friend of mine who came over our house, and they said, Dad, our dad told us this story. And I was just like, guys, those are private family stories. You're not supposed to share those with other people. Well, he died laughing. He thought they were hilarious. And he was like, John, you got to publish these. You have to get these out somehow. And I thought, you're crazy. I'm not going to write children's books. I'm a lawyer. My firm's going to fire me. My clients will fire me. I just thought there's nothing good that can come from me writing children's books. And what I realized was, it wasn't necessarily about being this big children's book author. I had this idea, well, what if I involved the kids in the writing of the book and the creating the business and the whole process? What if I used it as a way, not to sell a bunch of books, but to teach my kids how to start a business and how to be creative and how to get an idea and how to take that idea and turn it into something real? And when I talked to my wife about it, we said, hey, what do you think? And when we went forward the idea of, let's do it with the kids, not to take time away, but to teach them, it really got attractive to both of us. For me, I was like, okay, I could get behind this. I could put some money into this. And what I learned was, it ended up being way more fun than I realized it was going to be. Like we wrote this story, we hired an editor, we went through this process. My kids loved it. Even my wife loved it. We just had so much fun. And even when we got the first book out, I had this conversation with the kids. Well, in a business, when you have one successful launch, what do you do? And we said, well, you got to have another product. So we wrote another book, and now there's 4 books out total. There's 4 more that are written on the way that are coming. And it's been an incredible experience. I even said, hey guys, what do you do as a business? You share some of your success. We got to give some of the money away. And so I said, hey, we got to donate some percentage to charity. And so I said, but I'm not picking it. You guys pick the charity. And they fought. It was just one of the coolest conversations I've ever been a part of, just watching my kids fight. 4 kids talking about which charity is going to get their book money, right? And it was a beautiful conversation, because one was like, we should give to our church. And the other was like, well, we should give to this homeless shelter. And then the other one was, we should give to this place for grieving kids. And I was just like, how have you even heard of these charities? Like I didn't even know. I was just listening. And we said, fine. Well, we divided up into 3, and those are the 3 that they picked. So it was just such a cool experience. It was so fun.
I've heard one of the books, CinderToot.
CinderToot, yeah. So it's a little embarrassing. You could tell why, but it's the story of Cinderella, except when the clock strikes midnight, she is leaving the ball and she's running down the steps, and she does lose her slipper. Except in my version, she picks up the slipper and then she passes gas. She toots. And so the prince doesn't have the slipper. All he has is the smell of her toot to find his true love. So he has to go around the kingdom asking all the maidens to pass gas to find the smell of his true love. That's why it's called CinderToot. And I fully realize it is very silly, but at the time, like I mentioned earlier, I was just trying to make my kids laugh. I thought it was funny. And it turns out a lot of other people think it's very funny as well. But there are some people that don't like it. And that's why I thought my firm was going to fire me. I thought my clients would fire me because it's so silly, but it's very fun. And I tried to tell the story in a way that is not just gimmicky or crude. It's more beautiful. It's the story of this girl that hopes her true love finds her, and she's got, anyway, so it's very fun.
Where do you get your inspiration from for these books?
It's honestly, I was just trying to make my kids laugh. Like, truly, I was just trying to make my kids laugh and just in the moment. Like, there's a book called Manpunzel, which is the Rapunzel story, except it's a gender switch where there's a man in the tower, but he has full body hair all over that doesn't stop growing. So I thought that was funny because I just grew up as a hairy kid, right? And I remember being very hairy in middle school and high school, and other people not being so hairy. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if there's a guy in the tower, and then instead of in Rapunzel, a knight rescuing the girl, it's a girl rescuing the guy in the tower. And my daughters all loved it. And that was the idea. And I just had this funny thought, and I told it to my daughters, and they loved it. They thought it was super fun. And then it's really cool that the punchline joke on the last page of Manpunzel, which I won't ruin for anybody, but that my daughter Esme thought of that joke. And if you read that book, the name of the main character is Esmeralda, we call her. And so it's just so fun. We got to incorporate it, and then my kids think of some of the humor and add to it. And if you go on the Instagram 3 Girls and a Dad, you can see there's some interviews with me and the girls. And if you go on our YouTube page, you can see my girls said a couple of years ago, Dad, wouldn't it be fun if we interviewed you as the author? So they created these questions and asked me all these questions, and we recorded it. My son recorded it, and then we just edited it and put it online. And it's hilarious. It's just hilarious and very fun and cute.
So where can people find your books, and tell us about the social media that you have so people can find your information?
Yeah. So the books are available. If you go to johnmashni.com or 3girlsandadad.com, you can get the books. The books are also on Amazon. So you can just search my name there. You'll find them. And then the socials are just 3 Girls and a Dad at Instagram, Facebook. All the links are on. You can find them on 3 Girls and a Dad and johnmashni.com. So those are the best ways to find the books and learn more about them. And really, again, I think the best thing about the books is we realize we don't sell books. We sell about 30 minutes of joy with a child. And I like to say sometimes the child is optional.
That's good. So now your next project, which is your podcast.
Yeah.
Tell us about your podcast, please.
Honestly, Mason, it's been really cool. And I know you're doing this. You're doing a podcast right now, so you're on board. But I really wanted a way to connect with people and have the conversations that I find very difficult to have just in the busyness of life. And so what I realized was, well, why can't I have a podcast and have some of these conversations, but also have them be public? So I started asking some close friends and just really cool people that I know, hey, would you be willing to do an interview, and let's just have a conversation? And many times it's just people I want to talk to. And many times I'll pick a book or pick a movie or pick some topic, and we'll just riff on it and we'll talk about it. And honestly, it's been so fun. It's one of my favorite times of the day, just have a conversation with someone like yourself and say, hey, let's just have a conversation about a topic. And it goes, see where it goes. I'm not trying to have a set point or outline. It's more of, hey, what do you think about this particular topic? And then let's share and let's have a discussion. It's turned into something very fun and very cool. And there's a lot on the way,
Oh, good. And it's called The Intense Life?
The Intense Life. Yeah. And you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, wherever podcasts, are. And it's all linked on my website as well.
Okay. So with all the stuff that you do, which is, you got the firm and the attorney stuff going, you got the children's books, you've got the podcast. Do you have time to do anything else for yourself? Like, hobbies and
I like to spend time with my family. I got 4 kids, so life's crazy and busy. I do love filmmaking. I think I mentioned earlier, do produce movies and work in that space. Certainly on the legal side, but even on the production side, work behind the cam or behind the scenes to do some of the producing. And that's been a huge blessing. So if you look me up on IMDb, you can see like a bunch of credits and films. And I actually had a small acting role in a movie coming out this fall, which is very fun. And I'll be sharing more about that in the coming months.
Okay. So can you tell us the name or no?
Yeah, it's called, the name might change, but it's called The Kingdom Chip. And it's basically kind of like a sci-fi / drama. Essentially, somebody creates an AI, very advanced AI, and they program it to be like Jesus, and they put it in a church. And then it brings all these people into the church through a confessional. They want to talk to this AI. And I play this Catholic priest who comes in to investigate, is this real or is this kind of sacrilegious, right? And it was a really fun experience. The movie comes out this fall, and I had a lot of fun just going on set and being part of it.
Was this your first time acting?
No, actually, Mason, I have an acting background. So I acted in high school and college. And like I think I mentioned earlier, I went to film school. And so I'd had this experience. And really, I thought, well, I like being behind the camera more, writing and directing, but I have acted. And I think also I've been the lawyer for this production company for a while. And they finally said, we want to like torture our lawyer and put him through, put him through the stressors and all that kind of stuff. So I think they try to cast me and stuff and then beat me up on screen. And so it's like cathartic for them. They're like, oh yeah, John made us do all this other stuff. We're going to beat him up on camera.
I'm definitely going to look you up now. This is funny. So being from Michigan, are you following sports with the Pistons are doing?
Of course. Yeah. I grew up a Pistons fan, late 80s. So I followed the Pistons, when they won 2 NBA championships. And
with Dumars and
that's right.
And
Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman. John Sally. I followed them all. Loved them. Vinnie Johnson, right? When they traded Adrian Dantley, I was crushed. I remember. So I've been a Pistons fan growing up, and it's cool to see them now do well. And kind of come out of nowhere and just to be good.
What a turnaround. When they're like one of the worst records in like 3 years ago.
Yeah, they were not good. But I think it's just how cyclical how things go. And there's a big tradition in Detroit. It's just cool to see. At this point, I just like when they're fun to watch. So even the Detroit Lions, frankly, it's like, they were not fun to watch for a long time, but when they're fun to watch, that's where I like it. Cause it's like, hey, even if you don't win every game, it's still an enjoyable experience. That's cool to see. Who's your team? Who are you a fan of?
Let me see if you can take a guess.
Okay, gotcha.
Been a long life Laker fan and obviously a Dodger fan. My football team actually is the Raiders, and then Rams comes in second. But
why the Raiders?
I've always been a silver and black guy.
Okay.
Raider Nation.
Okay.
And I'm getting excited. Again, every year we get excited because 4 years in a row we had a new coach and a new quarterback, but this year's gonna be different.
This is a big year, right?
I would hope so. New coach again, but I think he's gonna do well. And we got Mendoza, who probably won't start. I suspect Kirk Cousins is gonna be the starter.
Yeah. But at some point, I mean, they got Cousins to probably be in the same room and, he have someone he could learn from. And
yeah,
I wonder though, there's going to be like a a handoff, at some point, right? I'm very curious to see how that goes actually, because Kirk Cousins went to Michigan State, so I was a big Michigan State fan. I'm living kind of near East Lansing, so I'm very curious to see how that goes. Whether it's like Cousins starts, and then at some point, is it this season? Is it next season? Mendoza takes over, or if do they try to work him in a little bit? And plus, it's like with a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. I mean, honestly, an injury could happen at any point, right? I mean, he's had some injuries before. I think he's very good, and as he's been very good in the past. But it's like on the tail end of the career. I'm curious to see what happens. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. And on the other hand, the Rams now have your Stafford, which
I know. Oh, the Detroit people, either some of them are like, well, he's not on the Lions, we're done. I'm more of like, hey, the guy was in Detroit for a long time, got beat up pretty badly in Detroit, but was a phenomenal player. Just didn't have the people around him. So I like to see him do well, and
yeah, he's probably getting close to the end, I would imagine. He just won the MVP, but still,
still a killer, man. Still amazing.
Still
amazing player.
All right, John, tell everybody again how to get a hold of you for all the things that you do.
Yeah, Mason, great to be with you. Again, if someone wants to reach out, johnmashni.com, JOHNMASHNI.com, or for legal, Rendios.com, RENDIOS.com. And would love to hear from anybody and enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much, Mason.
Yeah, of course. And make sure you guys follow his podcast, The Intense Life, and also check out the children's book, which is 3girlsandadad.com.
Yep.
Did you come up with that, or did the girls come up with that?
That's actually the name of one of our upcoming books. So we thought it'd be very fun to kind of rebrand and have that be the name of the site and the name of the brand itself.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for watching. And if you like this podcast, please like and subscribe to our podcast. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Mason.
Thanks for listening to the SCV Law and Life podcast. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Mason Rashtian, and I'll see you next time for more conversations on law, life, and what really moves the needle.